We might also just start, and if those are going to join a bit late, I can admit them in. So again, thank you for joining us today. The topics that we'll be having a chat about today will be around the new laws on affirmative consent and image-based sexual assault offences, sexual abuse offences, or sexting, so sharing of those intimate images. Towards the end, I'll also have a quick chat about child abuse material offences because they deal with the intimate images or the sharing of intimate images of young people under 18. So for those who are interested in knowing more about that, that topic will be kind of talked about towards the end. I'd just like to, I guess, give everyone the heads up that the next few slides that we're going to go through can kind of be a little bit tricky to process and to listen to. So if you feel as though you don't, if you need to take a break or it's getting a bit too much, please feel free to do that. Please don't feel like you have to sit through the presentation if it's not sitting well with you. I'll send around a link to this recording as well as a copy of the slides. And so you can kind of go through that in your own time if that would be a bit better for you. I'll also include my contact details. So whenever you get the time to go through it or when and if you go through it and you have questions, you can always get in touch with me as well. So I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. I'd also just like to let you all know that I am recording this session. So just bear that in mind if you wanted to unmute or ask questions, or you can also use the chat if you wanted to ask questions as well. Again, please look after yourself as much as you can throughout this presentation. We will be talking about some uncomfortable topics. So please, reach out as well if you need any support. This is a very optional icebreaker. And if you were wanting to participate, please absolutely do that. I'm always keen and interested to hear what people are reading, watching, or listening. My recommendation list is getting scarily small. So if you have anything that you would like to recommend, please, use the chat if you feel comfortable sharing. I always appreciate that. Just to kind of give you a, bit of like a vibe of what like I'm into. I'm watching a lot of like cooking shows at the moment. So any nice Brisbane, amazing, I think I want to wait until part 2 comes out to kind of binge it all together. But yes, love Bridgerton. Yeah, Supernatural's also good. Listen to all CDs. It's cool that you can do that still. I don't think I have any devices that will let me kind of put CDs in, so that's great that you can still do that. Great, thank you. Thanks for sharing. So a little bit about where I work. So I'm one of the lawyers working at a free legal service called Youthlaw. We're a statewide service. So anyone in Victoria who is under 25 can send us an email or give us a call, and we can kind of work out if we can support or help that young person. The next slide is a list of common legal issues that we help young people out with at Youthlaw. So just having a look on that slide, on that screen, what really comes to, what do you think would be the most common legal issue that we would be helping young people out with at Youthlaw? So they're not listed in order. But do any of those? Yeah, great. Thank you. Yes, exactly right. Fines. That's the perfect answer. Number 1 is fines. So fines is the most common legal issue that we help young people out with at Youthlaw. It's so common that we dedicate every Friday to supporting young people under 25 with fines. We have a clinic that's called the Friday Fines Clinic, and they're able to support young people who have fines in Victoria. So if you have any young person that you know, or if you have fines yourself and you're under 25, give us a call on the Friday, and we can kind of provide some support. The second most common legal issue is family violence intervention orders, then followed by crime. We support lots of young people around the issue of debt, victims of crime compensation, and tenancy or renting issues. So this is just kind of giving you that overview of what we'll be having a chat about today. So we'll look at consent as the first topic. We'll move on to sexting, and then finally we'll have a brief discussion about the child abuse material offences. I just want to be clear that the laws around the child abuse material offences haven't been updated, so there hasn't been any changes, but it's just kind of good to know when we're talking about sharing of intimate images amongst young people. The next two slides is a summary of different support services and organisations who are able to provide that help and support for anyone who may be going through any of the issues that we're talking about in the next few slides. Part of that package that I'll send out, I'll send a link to our website where you can download a poster form of the list. So yeah, don't feel like you have to write down these notes or anything like that. So quickly, what has changed? From the 30th of July, the definition or the meaning of consent has been updated. Situations or circumstances where there is no consent, that list has also been updated. There is now a requirement for everyone to practice affirmative consent, and the laws around that image-based sexual abuse offences have also been updated. So that's where there's that non-consensual, or where people aren't agreeing to having their intimate images shared or created, or if there's threats to share those intimate images. And I'll go through in detail what those changes mean and what they look like. So why is it important for us to kind of have a chat about these new laws? I guess, the main goal is to ensure and to hopefully provide people with information so then they can maintain and have healthy relationships, and to also ensure that people are feeling safe, comfortable, and respected. And I guess from our perspective, from the Youthlaw perspective, important for us to share this information to the community, because unfortunately, if consent isn't practiced properly, then it does enter into those kind of different sexual assault offences. So this is very tricky to do online, but if you were wanting to share your thoughts on what consent means to you, please absolutely do that. Either you can unmute yourself if you feel comfortable, if not, or you can use the chat. I guess I wanted to get feedback from the community. When you hear the word consent, what kind of comes to mind? What do you think consent looks like? I guess, it's also tricky. I kind of really set this up because, we're talking about affirmative consent and we're talking about consent in a sexual conduct. So that's probably where people might be drawing, their thoughts too. Thanks for sharing your thoughts as well. I really like that free and voluntary and enthusiastic agreement. I really like that word enthusiastic. Respecting a no and actively affirming agreement. All great descriptions of how we can describe consent. This slide here is a outline of the different kind of offences that relate to consent. So consent becomes a legal issue when it involves a criminal offence. The offence that I really want to draw your attention to, though, is that last offence that's listed on the slide, which is, it's called involved in an offence. People may have heard the terms aiding and abetting. It essentially means the same thing, which means if you are seen to be encouraging or helping another person commit an offence, then you would be considered as if you were the primary offender. So that really captures a lot of different kind of players, and it's an offence that not many people kind of are aware of or know about. So good to keep that in mind. This slide is a overview of the laws around age of consent. So the laws around age of consent hasn't been updated and hasn't changed. And it's something that I think is helpful when we're talking about consent as well. Because in Victoria, to be able to give consent, you need to be at a specific age to be able to do that. So if you're under 12, then you can't consent, and any sexual acts with a person under 12 is illegal. When a person turns 12, between the ages of 12 to 15, they can consent, but they can only consent if the other person or other people are within 24 months of their age. And when a person turns 16 and 17, they can consent with anyone who's older than them, except if that person held a position of care or supervision. So the laws relating to age of consent is very black and white, and really strict. I can see, yes, Libby, you've got your hand up.
Hi, sorry, I just have a question. I'm a consent educator in high schools, and the 24-month rule thing, can you provide any clarity around where to find that and how
Yeah,
to describe that?
yeah.
Because I've heard it described both as a defense to a charge and a leniency in the law.
Mhm.
I don't really have the legal understanding to have the clarity around the wording of that. Can
Yeah.
you provide any insight on that for me?
Yeah,
Thanks.
great. No, thanks. That's a really great question. And if it's okay with you, Libby, can I take that question away and find that specific kind of section and send that out in the group? Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Um, so I can, yeah, definitely provide more information on where you can find this, the specific laws, so you can kind of point to it, and resources on how you can explain that as well, because it can be a bit tricky to explain these kind of rules and laws to young people. So yeah, great comment and great question. I'll make a note of that um, to definitely add that into our list of questions that I'll send out. Questions and answers. All right. So we'll move on to consent, and what consent means. So when the law looks at the meaning of consent, there's kind of two ways in which they can do that. The first is looking at the legal definition or legal meaning of consent. And then the second is looking at whether the situation falls within a list of circumstances where the law says that you can't consent. So we'll go into more details about what they look like in the next few slides. So this is the legal meaning or the legal definition of consent. So if you looked up in the Crimes Act, you'll be able to see that consent is defined as free and voluntary agreement. The reason why the word "and" voluntary has been emphasized is because that's what's been updated since the 30th of July. So prior to the 30th of July 2023, consent, the definition of consent was free agreement. It's now free and voluntary agreement. And that's really to emphasize that to give consent, you not only have to do it freely, but you have to do it without any threats or any coercion. It has to be voluntarily given. It's also really clear now that a person doesn't consent just because they don't resist the act. And you also can't take into account a person's previous sexual history or behavior. So that there is trying to highlight the fact that every time you do or want to do an act with another person, you have to get consent every time. It doesn't matter whether you've done this, act with this person many times in the past. Every time you want to do the act, you have to get consent. So that's why consent is ongoing, and really importantly, can be taken away at any time. So we'll move on to having a chat about the list that the law has put together, where they have said if a person falls within one of these situations or circumstances, then you can't give consent. So we'll look at what that looks like. So if a person doesn't say or do anything as a sign of consent, then they seem to be not consenting. If there's any force or fear of force or harm, and harm is described really broadly to include physical, psychological, or financial. If they're held against their will, if they're asleep, unconscious, or affected by alcohol or drugs, if they don't understand the sexual act, or if they're tricked about the act or identity of the person. So if anyone falls within any of these kind of circumstances or situations, then the law just deems that you can't have given consent. From the 30th of July, though, this list has been updated to include coercion or intimidation. So if there's any coercion or intimidation in that relationship or in that dynamic that causes the victim survivor to do the act with the accused, then consent wasn't given. So that's really trying to capture scenarios where maybe force of harm or fear isn't very obvious because the behaviour has been ongoing for a period of time where the victim survivor felt that they couldn't say no. So really potentially capturing lots of family violence scenarios and situations. The next circumstance is the abusive relationship of authority or trust. That's really trying to highlight the power imbalance between parties. A common example of that would be a boss says to their worker, you need to have sex with me or you won't get this promotion. If the worker has sex with their boss because they're afraid of losing that promotion, then there's been an abusive relationship of authority, and so consent wasn't given in that situation. The next circumstance relates to sex workers or sex work, and that says if there has been any false or misleading representation about the payment of commercial sexual services, then consent wasn't given. So that's really trying to highlight situations where a person may engage with a sex worker and says, if you do this sex act, I will pay you, and the person doesn't pay or the payment doesn't go through, then consent wasn't given. And then the last new circumstance that has been updated to the list is what's in the community commonly known as stealthing. But the law says that if you consent or if you agree to do an act on the understanding that a condom would be used and a condom is then not used, taken off or tampered with or messed around with, then consent wasn't given. So that's really clear now that if that's the situation, then consent wasn't given. Yeah, I find it kind of going through the situations where you can't give consent can be pretty heavy. Yeah, if people want to share how, after listening to this list is sitting with them, please feel free to do that. Or if you want to share your thoughts or anything like that, please, feel free to use the chat function to do that as well. Or if you have any questions relating to any of those circumstances, please, sing out. So we'll move on to affirmative consent and the requirement that we all kind of need to do now. So everyone now has to take reasonable steps. And what does that mean? So it means you have to say or do something to find out if there is consent, and it has to be done within a reasonable time. So either at the time of the act or just before the act. That last stop point there is just trying to highlight the reason why we have these new laws, which is that the courts will now have a greater focus on the accused person's actions. So the courts will look at what did the accused person do to say or do something to find out that that consent was given, rather than looking at what did the victim survivor do in the different scenarios or situations. So hopefully it will provide for kind of better outcomes in court. Okay, so this slide here is that first part of the slide. It gives you kind of practical statements that you can use when asking for consent. So it's just really about checking in with the other person or other people if they're comfortable with what you're wanting to do. I've put in there the exception as well. So the law also understands that people have different communication abilities. And so if a person has a cognitive impairment or mental illness, and it substantially causes them to not say or do anything, then they don't have to take steps to find out if consent was given. That being said, though, there still needs to be other forms of communication if they're able to communicate in other forms to be able to get consent. And the courts and police will still look at the situation as a whole, so to determine whether consent was given and reasonably, if consent was reasonably given in that situation or scenario. It was a little bit tricky to explain the exception, so please let me know if that was a little bit confusing, and I'll try to rephrase and explain again. So just to wrap up the first topic, so we looked at the legal meaning of consent. We looked at the range of circumstances where the law automatically says a person can't consent. We looked at what affirmative consent means. We didn't talk about this last dot point, but it's really important, an important takeaway, which is sexual assault is never the fault or responsibility of the victim survivor. It's also never too late to report as well. There's no time limitations on reporting. And there are a lot of support services available if needed. All right, so that kind of concludes, or that's the end of our first topic. I have a quiz that hopefully is a bit more interactive. So I'll just stop sharing that screen and bring up this screen here, which, I might also copy and paste how you can get into this quiz in the chat. So feel free to, follow that link and enter that code. If you want to participate, please also don't feel like you have to as well, only if you would like to. And I will share that screen. If you didn't want to participate, that's totally okay too. We can kind of go through the quiz together on the share screen. I'm just going to double check that, yes, that's sharing. So yeah, you can, if you are able to, you can jump onto that website and you can enter that code, or you can also use a device where you can scan that QR code to get in. Okay. I'll also just bring up the chat just to make sure that there's any questions. Okay. So question 1, River is 16 years old and they are at a party. They can see Ash from the year level on the couch across the room, who looks to be extremely drunk and struggling to sit up. Parker in the year above them is sitting next to Ash and touching them in a sexual manner. Robin and Remy are standing next to Parker, watching and laughing. River doesn't like it, so they leave the room and go elsewhere. Do you think that a sexual offence has been committed? And if so, by whom? Okay. So I think you'll get a chance to read the question again. Very short period though, only 5 seconds, unfortunately. And then the potential answers are 1, no, because Parker was not having sex with Ash. Yes, a sexual offence has been committed by Parker only. Yes, a sexual offence has been committed by Parker, Robin and Remy, or yes, everyone. Let's kind of see what people thought. Yeah, great to see a mix. And it's good to see the kind of people having different answers for this question. Those who answered yes, the sexual offence was committed by Parker only, is correct in a sense, because Parker did that unwanted sexual touching. So Parker definitely would have committed that sexual offence. But Robin and Remy are also included in that because they were standing there watching and laughing. They could be seen to be encouraging. And so that's that last offence that we talked about really early on, involved in an offence. So that's why this option, or C, is the right answer. So question 2 involves a little bit of maths. So Lucy is 15, their partner Sam is 17. They've been dating for over a year and they've been engaging in consensual sexual activity. So they're careful to make sure that they're consenting every time. Their relationship is also going well. Lucy's birthday is in September, which is after Sam's birthday, which is next month in June. So do you think that a sexual offence has been committed, and if so, by whom. So just to highlight, Lucy's 15, their partner Sam is 17. Just keep in mind what their ages are at their next birthdays. So options are no, neither of them have committed a sexual offence as they both have consented to this sexual activity. Yes, both Lucy and Sam have committed a sexual offence, or yes, but only Sam has committed a sexual offence. Yeah, that's right. So only Sam has committed that sexual offence, so great. Oh, sorry, different to the one that you have on your screen. Is that right, Libby?
Yeah, previously it was September and June, and then
Yeah.
that one that came up was like February and November.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So
Might have
I
been a
was like,
glitch. Bit
that's okay.
confusing. Sorry about that. But yeah, we're going to refer to that first slide, which is their birthdays kind of coming up in that September. Sorry, in that the June, September. So, I mean, yeah, correct to say that the sexual offence has been committed, but by Sam only. And that's because Sam would be 18 when Lucy would still be 15. So question 3, Abdul is 22, his boyfriend Christian is 17. They've been engaging in consensual sexual activity together. Do you think that a sexual offence has been committed, and if so, by whom? Okay. So no, neither of them have committed a sexual offence as it is consensual. Yes, Abdul and Christian have committed a sexual offence, or yes, but only Abdul has committed a sexual offence. Yeah, amazing, great. That's exactly right. So when you turn 17 and 18, you can consent with anyone who's older than you, except if that person held a position of care or supervision. So great job. And final question, Morgan and Alex are partners. They're both 16. They're at Morgan's house one night and Alex keeps trying to initiate sexual activity. Morgan doesn't want to and keeps pushing Alex's hand away and is afraid to tell them to stop. Alex keeps trying and pressures Morgan. Eventually, Morgan freezes and lets Alex continue. Do you think that a sexual offence has been committed? So, no or yes? Amazing, great. Perfect. Yeah, I hope that that scenario was a bit self-explanatory and really obvious. There were lots of different kind of behaviors and actions that would indicate that Morgan was not consenting, and Alex didn't say or do anything to find out if consent was given. So great answers. Okay, so let's kind of have a look to see who was the fastest and who had the most correct answers. Okay, so Dr. Centipede, whoever you are out there, well done. You are our winner. All right, I'll stop sharing that and go back to our PowerPoint. Let's see if I can put that into a wide screen. And yeah, looks like it's up. So we'll now have a chat about the second topic, which is the image-based sexual abuse offences. Again, these offences involve that non-consensual or where people don't agree to having their intimate image created or shared, or if there's any threats to share of those intimate images. So from the 30th of July, what's new? There's a brand new offence, so the brand new crime called producing or making an intimate image without their consent. And The other change that has happened is that these laws used to sit in an area of law that was considered not so serious, called the Summary Offences Act, and it is now being moved to the Crimes Act. The benefit of it being moved from one area of law to another is that when it used to sit in the Summary Offences Act, police only had 12 months to investigate and charge a person. Now that it sits in the Crimes Act, police kind of don't have that time limitation to investigate and charge. So that's one of the benefits. The other change that has happened is that the maximum penalty has increased from 2 years to 3 years. Um, Other things that have changed is the definition or meaning of intimate image has been updated to better cover persons of diverse genders. Courts now have broader powers relating to the disposal destruction order. Those orders relate to when when the courts make an order to destroy intimate images. So they give these orders out to people who they believe have intimate images of the victim survivor, and they're able to tell those people who have those images to destroy it. So they're court ordered to destroy those images. And that last update, DPP, stands for the Director of Public Prosecutions. So for anyone who is 16 and under, to for those young people to be charged with any of these offences, the DPP or Director of Public Prosecutions have to agree to having these charges laid. If the Director of Public Prosecutions don't agree, then people under 16 can't be charged with these offences. Normally with these kind of offences, Victoria Police would be the prosecuting agency or um, the prosecutor. And the Director of Public Prosecutions only kind of get involved in cases if they're extremely serious. So they'll only kind of consent or agree to having these charges against people under 16 if they were in really serious kind of circumstances. So hopefully that will protect young people from getting overly charged with these offences. So this is the meaning or definition of intimate image within the law. So if a person is engaged in a sexual activity or in a manner or context that is sexual, the genital or anal region of a person, or if a person's female, transgender, intersex person identifying as female, the breasts of the person. So this is we talked about this briefly, but there's a new offence called producing an intimate image without a person's consent. So it's illegal now to create an intimate image of someone else without their consent. Really important to note that people who are under 18 can't consent to having the intimate image made. But if you are an adult, then there is an exception. So adults can consent to having their intimate image created or made, but they need to specify how it's to be created or made. So this offence here really tries to capture those different behaviours relating to the use of AI or deepfake porn. So that's kind of, that's the reason why that offence was created. The other two offences relate to sharing or distributing an intimate image and threatening to share an intimate image. So it's illegal to send or share an intimate image of someone else or threaten to do that without their consent. I guess what's important to note about that offence relating to threat to share an intimate image is that it doesn't matter if a person doesn't go through with that threat. The very fact that they've made that threat and the victim survivor believed for it to have for the victim, sorry, to have believed that threat is enough for that offence to be made out. Again, just to note that people who are under 18 or children can't consent to having their intimate image shared. But if you are an adult, you can consent to having your intimate image shared. Again, you have to specify how it's to be shared though. So person A can send their picture to person B as an adult and can specify or tell person B, you can send it to C. But then if B sends it to D, E, F, consent wasn't given and they won't be saved by this exception. The second exception relates to images that are in the public place. So if the image is of an adult and you find it in a public place, then you can share that with other people if you either know the person who put that image up in the first place wanted their image in a public place, or a reasonable person would believe that they wanted their image up in that public place. Then you can share that around. But if you don't know if that person wanted their image up or posted in that public place, or a reasonable person wouldn't believe they wanted their image up there, then you can't share that around. So a common kind of example would be finding images on like revenge porn websites. Um, a reasonable person would believe that a person whose image is on that website didn't want their image up on that website, so you can't then share that around with other people. So this is, a common question that we get asked at Youthlaw. So what to do if someone has sent you an intimate image without you knowing? We would recommend that you don't keep it, forward it, or upload it. Delete it as soon as you can, and also, if possible, block the person who sent it to you. The next question is also a really common one, which is, what do you do if you're worried after having sent an intimate image of yourself, or someone has sent your intimate image without your consent? We would encourage you to talk to a trusted person first, and then, if possible, to get legal advice by contacting Youthlaw if you're under 25, or Victoria Legal Aid, or your local free community legal centre. The other great organisation to kind of be aware of, or just to know about, is the Office of E-Safety Commissioner. They have really powerful powers relating to intimate images kind of being shared. And they're able to kind of take things down if you want that to as well. Yes, Libby, it does apply to celebrities. I think referring to that exception of if you found an intimate image of a person in a public place, I guess you really need to look at the context behind that image as well, or that video, to be able to work out whether a reasonable person would believe that they wanted that image up in a public place or not. So I think it'll just come down to that question. Yeah. So this is that kind of concludes or wraps up that second topic. We looked at the 3 different offences relating to the intimate image abuse offences. We looked at the legal meaning of what an intimate image means, and also where to get help if you needed support with any of those different offences. And then just lastly, to tie up and finish up with the presentation, we'll have a chat about child abuse material offences. And again, this just really relates to those images that are shared or created by people who are under 18, because technically that would fall within the meaning of child abuse material. So you can see on the screen here, the meaning of child abuse material is very broad. It captures any film, audio, photograph, image, computer game, or text showing or describing a person who is or appears to be a child, engaged in a sexual activity or sexual pose, and people would find it offensive. So hypothetically, a person who is under 18, a child, taking a photo of themselves, keeping it on their phone, hypothetically could be charged with making child pornography or child abuse material. And then if they then send that to another young person, they could then also be charged with sending child abuse material. So yeah, the maximum penalty for that is 10 years in Victoria. And in addition to that is, oh, no worries, thanks, Kiona, is potentially being put on what's called the sex offenders register, which I'll go into more information about that later. So as you can imagine, if that was the actual law and that was like the end of that law, there'll be so many young people in Victoria who would be charged and found guilty of these really serious child abuse material offences. But fortunately, in Victoria, there are exceptions and defences to child abuse material laws. And it says the first one is, if you are under 18 and you take a photo of yourself and keep that, then that's not an offence. So it won't be an offence to have created or to have child abuse material. And secondly, if you are under 18 and you get another photo of a person who is under 18, and there is less than 2 years between you and the person who who's in that image and you haven't sent it to anyone else, then it's not an offence to keep that as well. So that's really to protect young people from sending and receiving intimate images when they're under 18, but in really strict in a strict way. So they can only do that if they're within 24 months of each other. I haven't put it up there, but if there was any images that relate to criminal offences, then that's also not included. But it's really to capture situations where young people are wanting to share intimate images of themselves in a non-exploitative way. Then they shouldn't be criminalised for that. To make things a little bit more complicated though, because we live in a country where both state and territorial laws apply, unfortunately, if there's any issues between state and federal laws will override state law because it's more powerful than state law. And unfortunately, with the federal laws, there's no exceptions or defences to child abuse material. So technically, the federal police can still charge Victorian children with child abuse material offences because they won't be protected by the Victorian law defences or exceptions. That being said, though, it would be extremely rare for the federal police to do that. It would only be in really serious kind of circumstances for them to take over Victoria Police's powers or jurisdiction. The other thing that will make things a lot more complicated is if you have young people or if you're a young person wanting to have relationships from different states with young people from different states and territories, laws aren't consistent. So the laws that apply in Victoria don't apply in New South Wales or Queensland or South Australia. The laws, yeah, you just need to keep that in mind that laws are different from state to state. So yeah, really tricky to kind of work out what you can and can't do. But just, yeah, keep that in mind. So what happens if someone breaks the law? The police would then get notified. If the police then get notified, they'll investigate. And if there's enough evidence, we'll charge the accused person. The accused person will then need to go to court, so attend a court hearing and either plead guilty or if they don't plead guilty and found guilty, then they will end up with a criminal record. And then depending on the seriousness of the offences that they've been found guilty of or pled guilty to, we'll work out whether or not they're put on what's called the sex offenders register. If a person's under 18, so a child, the court can only put them on the sex offenders register for a maximum of 7.5 years. But if you are an adult, then the court doesn't have any kind of limitations around how long you'll put on the sex offenders register. It really depends on, what you've been charged with and the seriousness of the offences. To be put on the sex offenders register is a really serious thing. It really limits a person's kind of ability to live a life essentially, because it really dictates or tells you where and when you can't, or where you can work, where you can live. There's really strict rules on like how you have to report things or report certain things to police. And if you don't do any of those things, then it's really serious to not follow the conditions. I think we've got a question. If a child takes a pic of themselves but are threatened, encouraged to do so by another, definitely right. Yeah, that's not right as well. So there will be, they have to do that with consent. So if you were taking a photo of yourself, you need to do that because you wanted to. But if they were threatened or encouraged, then that enters into a whole different kind of scenario. But great pickup on that as well. So just to finish up our presentation, if you feel like you would like to participate, please do so using the thumbs up or shocked emoji to answer the following true or false statements. So if you think this statement is true, please use the thumbs up. If you think it's false, please use that shock face. So question 1 is, Kim is 15, their 16-year-old partner sent them a sexy text. Under Victorian laws, it's okay for Kim to keep it. Do you think it's true or false? So the answer is true. So yeah, it's okay for Kim to keep it because there's that less than 24 months difference between their ages. So Joe is 17. They're seeing Sam, who is in uni and is 18. Sam sends Joe a nude photo. It's not child abuse material because they're an adult. It's okay for Joe to keep it. What do you think? True or false? The answer is true. And that's because when you turn 18, yeah, you're considered an adult, so it won't be considered child abuse material offence. Child abuse material. Question 3, Charlie is in year 9. They send a pic of themselves in bed naked to Tom. They said, share the love with your mates if you like. Tom goes ahead and shares it to some of their friends. It's okay because Charlie gave consent. The answer to that is false. So children under 18 or children can't give consent to having the intimate image shared. Question 4, Eli texts Leo, I'm over it, don't want to go out with you anymore. Leo texts back, take that back or you'll be sorry. Remember those secret pics? I can easily send them to everyone. What Leo is saying is illegal, even if they don't go through with it. Yep, great. Exactly right, true. And then the last question, Carrie finds a naked photo of a person from an online magazine and replaced their face with the face of James, who works with Carrie. They then send it around to their workmates as a joke. It's okay for Carrie to do this. Do you think it's true? False. Yeah, amazing. Exactly right. False. So that really captures that brand new offense of creating an intimate image without a person's consent. Well done. So that's the end of our presentation today. Please feel free to use the chat function if you want to share something that you've learned today. Yeah, that would be great. This is how you can contact us here at Youthlaw. So you can give us a call or send us an email. You can also kind of jump online and look on our website for other fact sheets related to different areas of law. And, oh, I might, if it's okay, if you had some time, then I have a survey that we would like. Oh, thank you. And yeah, thank you for participating as well and for joining us. Feel free to, yeah, use that link to complete the survey if you have time and are able to do that. And just to end off on something a little bit more light, after kind of talking about really heavy topics, is pictures of my dog. His name's Archie. He's 3 years old, but these pictures were taken when he was probably around that 1 month, or 1 year mark, when he still had that puppy dog kind of cute face. He has a yeah, very sleepy old man's face now. So not super cute to share, but yeah, thank you again for your participation and for joining us. I'll share the link to this video as well, and a copy of the presentation, and I'll answer the questions that we've kind of put in that chat as well. So yeah, that's it. Unless anyone else has any questions or anything like that, we might end it there. Thank you. Thanks again. Have a great afternoon.